I'm Jen, I'm from the Royal Forestry Society, and today we're going to talk a little bit about trees, a little bit about climate change, and a little bit about the future. We know that together LRG, Green the UK and the RFS are planting trees, but why is that important? And what impact will that have on climate change and our future? So in order to answer this question, I decided to think about a little bit about the futures that we might not want to live in. Automatically, I Googled apocalypse futures and a whole load of films came up in the search. I went off down that rabbit hole and came up with a list of the best apocalypse films. Now, if we park all the films with zombies, vampires, and oh my goodness, there's a meteor headed straight for the Earth, and focus just on the films where humans are responsible for royally messing things up, we get left with nuclear war and whoops, we accidentally polluted everything while we were living in the land of happy ignorance and over-consumerism. We get films like Mad Max, Judge Dredd, The Road, and WALL-E. Yes, that adorable Pixar robot. Still with me? Okay, so now I'm thinking about the types of imagery and themes that are used in these different films. In Mad Max, we've got desert landscapes, no water, lots of dust, and no trees. In Judge Dredd, we've got megacities, high-rise buildings, a big drug culture, lots and lots of concrete, but again, no trees. The Road is a wasteland, no shelter, massive crime culture, no trees. And WALL-E, piles of junk, a lovely but lonely robot, and sadly, no trees. So I think it's fair to say that none of us really want to end up in a world with no trees, or even a world without lots of trees. But how likely is it that we could find ourselves in a situation where trees are dying faster than they're germinating? Well, I'm really sorry to say that we're already there. It's estimated that each year we fell somewhere around 15 billion trees, and each year we only plant 1.9 billion trees. For those of you that struggle to imagine what 15 billion looks like as a number, here it is. Now, even if we take into account all the trees that aren't planted, for example, all the trees that will germinate from seeds naturally, we're still losing trees in a process called deforestation. This is where trees are felled but not replanted, often to make way for crops, buildings, and other infrastructure like roads. Globally, we're losing 10 million hectares of forest every year to deforestation. That's an area nearly as big as Iceland, every single year. But let's bring it back to the UK. We couldn't possibly be losing tree cover here, could we? We are sensible, law-abiding, socially responsible citizens here, and we wouldn't dream of treating trees as the important resource that they are with such reckless abandon, right? Well, actually, that is right. A recent report commissioned by the Woodland Trust states that woodland cover in the UK is gradually increasing. But, and this is a big but, we're not out of the woods yet, pardon the pun. UK woods and trees, like all trees around the world, are under threat from climate change, pests, and diseases. This threat's exacerbated by the fact that 60% of the UK's woodland is made up of just 6 different types of tree. These are Sitka spruce, birch, Scots pine, oak, ash, and sycamore. And this is a problem. I will explain why a little later on. But first, let's have another look at another problem that we have. The UK is the second largest importer of wood products by value, second only to China. We're not growing enough wood in the UK to meet our own demand for timber, paper, card, or even biomass. We are importing other countries' waste wood chips to burn in our biomass generators and calling it green energy. Imagine the impact on our carbon footprint if we could grow all, or at least much more, of what we need right here. Importing wood and wood products also increases the risk of accidentally introducing new pests and diseases to the UK from other countries. So, back to our 6 different trees. We already have pests and diseases that weaken or even kill trees here in the UK. For Sitka spruce, these are green spruce aphid and spruce bark beetle, with a much larger European spruce bark beetle affecting trees in nearby Europe. For Scots pine, these are red band needle blight, pine shoot beetle, and pine tree leopard moth, with pine processionary moth again very nearby in neighbouring European countries. For birch, it's rust and honey fungus. For ash, it's ash dieback. And again, emerald ash borer beetle is looming on the horizon. It was originally from Asia, but was accidentally introduced to North America, where it's causing huge problems for ash trees there. If it gets to the UK, we are going to have a serious problem. For oak, it's grey squirrels, oak dieback, acute oak decline, and oak processionary moth. For sycamore, it's grey squirrels, again, leaf spot, tar spot, and sooty bark disease. And then we throw climate change on top of all of that. Climate change has always happened, but we're now in a period of rapid climate change, which has been caused by release of carbon dioxide into our atmosphere from human activities. These human activities include digging up fossil fuels, where carbon was nicely locked away underground in the form of gas, oil, and coal, and burning them, and degrading our soils by intensively or unsustainably farming them. Degraded soils release carbon from underground into the atmosphere as well. And it's important to remember that it's carbon and some other greenhouse gases in the air that are the problem, not carbon in the soil or the sea or otherwise locked away. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC, are pretty clear on the subject of rapid climate change. It is bad. Climate change is a significant threat to our ecosystems and to human health. Our goal over the next 50 to 80 years is to limit global warming to less than a 1.5 degrees Celsius rise above pre-industrial levels. If we can limit warming to less than 1.5 degrees C, we've got a chance. We'll be able to cope. Every bit of warming over 1.5 degrees C increases the risk to people and to ecosystems above the threshold that we think we can cope with. The IPCC are also very clear that we're already seeing the consequences of a 1 degree warming through more extreme weather, rising sea levels, and diminishing Arctic sea ice. This means that we will see more droughts, storms, and floods the longer this goes on. The devastating flooding in Pakistan last year damaged or destroyed 2.2 million homes and killed more than 1,700 people. 33 million people in Pakistan are thought to have been affected by these floods. Floods in the UK are also becoming much more frequent too. Fire and rescue crews in England are calling for more resources to deal with floods as our casualty and mortality rates linked to flooding continue to rise. So it can feel a little bit hopeless. How can we help? What on earth can we do? Lots of people ask me what technology I'm backing to help in the fight against climate change. And although I believe we'll need every tool in our toolbox and technology will undoubtedly have a place in the fight, I think that one of the answers is rather more simple. Let's just get back to basics. All plants, including trees, have evolved over millions of years to take carbon from the atmosphere and lock it away in their branches, leaves, trunks, and roots. Light energy is used by plants to convert water and carbon dioxide into oxygen, which is released back into the atmosphere, and minerals and sugars, which are used by the plant to grow. The carbon which was taken out of the atmosphere by the plant remains locked away in the tree or even the timber until it's either burnt or starts to decompose. So logically, if we plant more trees and make more things from wood, like buildings and furniture, rather than using concrete and steel, which have a very large carbon footprint, we're helping to fight climate change. We could, like Bill Gates has done, invest loads of money in carbon capture storage facilities full of chemicals and posh technology, or We could, whilst there's still a lot of space and enthusiasm, plant trees and make more of our timber. Trees, in my opinion, are the most efficient and beautiful carbon capture and storage machines. In terms of global carbon capture and storage, the world's trees are second only to the world's oceans as our largest carbon sink. And trees provide so many other benefits. Their leaves filter out dirt and air pollution, stopping these particles from entering our lungs. They provide shade and a cooling effect, further mitigating the effects of rapid climate change. They provide us with beautiful vistas and landscapes, and they help to prevent flooding. They provide us with timber and fuel and packaging and paper and toilet roll. And they provide us with homes for all sorts of different plants, animals, bugs, birds, and microorganisms. Without trees, we would be lost. And without more trees, we're likely to be in a whole heap of trouble. So back to our 6 different types of trees. We know that trees are a big part of the solution for climate change. And we know that the 6 different types of trees that make up over 60% of the UK's woodlands are already under threat from pests and diseases, which we already have, and pests and diseases which haven't made it to our shores yet. What I haven't told you is that climate change is also weakening and killing our trees here in the UK, although it's probably not too much of a surprise to learn that trees don't like floods or droughts or storms very much. Weak trees are much more vulnerable to pests and diseases than strong, healthy trees, in the same way that when you're feeling run down, you always seem to catch a cold. So what can we do to help these trees survive these threats? It probably won't surprise you to know that planting a much wider diversity of trees is going to be key to helping some of our woodlands survive. Some pests affect some trees, but not others. So the more different types of trees you plant, the more chance a woodland has of surviving. We also know that our climate is changing and that we're likely to see some of the most dramatic effects of climate change in the next 50 to 80 years. Now, when we think about the lifespan of a tree, 50 to 80 years is not a very long time. For example, it takes about 200 years for an oak tree to reach full maturity, and these trees can live for over 1,000 years. It stands to reason that some of the trees that grow well in our UK climates today might not do so well in our 50 to 80-year climate futures. Although we don't know exactly what's going to happen, models show that southern England might have a much more Mediterranean-style climate. And indeed, some people in London are already finding that their prized olive trees are growing perfectly happily outdoors when previously you could only really grow these trees inside in the warm. Unlike other planting schemes, which tend to plant between 1 and 8 different species of trees, LRG, in partnership with GreenTheUK and the Royal Forestry Society, have already planted 43 different tree species, and we're still counting. This is incredible. And of course, we need to plant more trees to mitigate those catastrophic effects of rapid climate change. You guys are the heroes, and we need more like you, people who step up and take action to plant trees and protect wildlife. Thank you so much for listening and taking time out of your day to find out a little bit more about all of the incredible things LRG, GreenTheUK and the RFS are achieving together